me for this video. You guys, I hope that you can hear me clearly. As a matter of fact, let me make sure that you can, so that I don't have to wait on any responses, because I'm going to tell you, there's a kind of a bit that I have to read. You guys see what I have up here? I have let me see where I'm at with this. I have a direct source. Okay, perfect. So we do have audio. So I have a direct source right here in front of us called the Inner City Press. This man is inside the courtroom, and he is hearing step by step and writing for us step by step everything that's going on. I did want to go to his page. If you guys want to follow him, he's called Inner City Press. He really does have, it's almost like reading a transcript. It's just really well put together. Everything's well thought out. So I wanted to come and not only give him his flowers, but also let you guys know what has been going on with him. And he's letting us know what's been going on with Diddy. Okay, so let's get started. So this is yesterday. Now, this is yesterday at 8:37. I'm going to go ahead and take myself off cam for a minute. Okay, so this is yesterday at 8:37. Says Sean Combs still has not been brought into the courtroom. The lawyers are milling around. Brian still comes up to Asa Marine Comey to shake hands. Agna Filio and Alexandria Sharp conferring first step preemptory challenge to 45 prospective jurors. So this is the jury selection and how that is going to look. And so this is the very beginning of jury selection. This was, that jury selection was a mess, very much so a mess. So Sean comes in the courtroom at 8:53. He's now there. He's wearing a light sweater instead of a dark blue sweater. He turns and blows a kiss to his family members in the second row of the gallery. Now, while we're bringing up his family members, did y'all hear about yesterday about how his daughters got up and walked out of the courtroom when they started hearing the male escort describing how he urinated on Cassie, and how Sean Puff Daddy Diddy Brother Love Combs was in the corner masturbating while Cassie was getting urinated on. It was just a mess. And by the way, this is simply reporting. I'm not saying any of these words for entertainment. This is reporting and educational purposes on a high profile case. I just want to point that out. All right, at 8:56 a.m., the clerk said, "Are the parties ready?" They said, "Yes." "Mr. Combs, were you able to get some water?" "We made arrangements for that." Judge Submaranian still had not come into the courtroom. So then at 9:03, Agna Filio and Tinny Geragos were poring over papers. Of course, they had to do research for their preemptory challenge to their prospective jurors. Combs was wearing glasses, looking down at papers. 3 of the 6 jurors were looking at or typing on their cell phones. So y'all can see how detailed this man is with his reports back from inside the courtroom. I'm talking about he really did go in there and get what he needed to get. Okay. At 9:26, Diddy's lawyer Agna Filio and the prosecutor Maureen Comey are the ones in with Judge Submaranian, presumably doing the preemptory strikes to the jury pool. In New York State Court, this is all done in public, in the courtroom, on record. Wait for the announcement of jurors. At 9:34, and we're off, the judge says, "Good morning, we're here for preemptory challenges." Comey says, "We strike juror 51. Agna Filio says, "We strike 52 and 106. Comey says, "We strike 216. Agna Filio says, "We strike 157 and 112. Comey says, "We strike 118. Agna Filio says, "We strike 127 and 136. So they were striking away. As you guys can see, they also struck 81, 149, 20, 161, 22, 84. Then Comey says the defense was only supposed to strike 1 in this round. And so Agna Filio said, "So we strike only 22. And then Comey said, "We strike 163. And then Agna Filio went back and striked 84 anyway. Okay, they go on to strike 220, 25. And then Comey said, "I believe he was supposed to strike in the alternative." Agna Filio says, "Give me 1 second," talks to his co-worker. And then 218. Comey says, "We strike 324. Agnifilio says 240 and then 281. Then Agnifilio says 1 moment. Combs is Agnifilio, which is his lawyer, attorney, says, I note that the government has struck 7 black people out of 9 strikes. Judge Submaranian said, I'll give you a chance to raise that, but let's continue. Agnifilio said, we strike 307. Judge Submaranian says, our jurors 2, 5, 28, 25, 55, 58, 75, 116, and it goes on to list the rest of these numbers. Agnifilio says the U.S. struck 7 black people, which amounts to a pattern. Judge says an application has been made under Baston, Miss Comey, and then Asa Comey says we're neutral. Asa Comey says juror 51 knew 17 of the names, appeared to have seen making the band, has a relative with law enforcement issues. The next strike, he harassed a police officer and didn't report it. His sister had an issue. This clears the bar. These are good reasons. So here's my thing with the jury striking of the 7 black jurors out of 9, right? My thing with that is, if this is a black celebrity, so he's going to know, more African American people are going to be more prone to have watched his shows, to know who he is, to know a lot of these people that they're asking about. That's the reason why you see the prosecution striking black jurors. I don't think it had anything to do with their race. I think it more had to do with their knowledge of what is going on. But do I think that Diddy asked his attorney to raise that as a issue? Yes. However, Asa Comey, which is the prosecuting attorney, said these are good reasons. Asa Comey says juror number 81, we think they claim to have special knowledge of bipolar issues. 161 said he watched the news about the case that morning. He said it was inevitable. He'd lose 30% of his income, but once on, he has an agenda. Asa Comey says we struck 163, I believe, for cause due to English proficiency, and he had a relative who shot a police officer. Among the alternates, we barred a person who went to Mr. Combs' high school. The next one, 324, has sleep apnea. So as you guys can see, there was a whole lot of the prosecution actually had good reasons. I don't necessarily agree with the whole it's because I'm black thing. I think that's a cop-out. I don't really understand how Sean Diddy Combs can be comfortable beating a girl down the hallway and then be like, well, they only care that I'm beating her because I'm a black man. Like, what? No, you were literally kidnapping someone. You ran down the hallway in a towel to kidnap somebody and drag them and beat them back into your room with this male escort worker. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so Asa Comey says he also called the police a-holes. We struck him. And 281, she said victims can catch a case and jump on a bandwagon. We think she has an agenda. This easily clears the Batson's bar. Okay, so here's the thing. That juror 281, they're basically saying that she's going to say that these women are just jumping in here because it's the thing to do. They're just jumping on a bandwagon. They're not telling the truth. They don't want to take those chances. Judge Submaranian says, I deny the defense's Batson challenge. These were not based on purposeful discrimination. Mr. Agnifilio, anything more? And he says nothing from us. The judge said, we'll bring the jury in a few minutes. Okay. All right. So this is how it looked outside the courthouse. Shout out to this inner city press person. Like, he really is doing his thing out here in these streets. Okay, he said, while we wait, Inner City Press put up an extra about a questionable fact or a lie that made it through the challenge for ex-subscribers, and then you were unable to see the post. Okay, so at 10:17 a.m., the jurors were seated. Judge Submaranian said, welcome back. This is the U.S. versus Sean Combs. We'll be providing lunch for you in the jury room. We will not release your names to the public. Then the clerk swears in the jurors. The judge says, questions are not evidence. Only the answers given by the witness and the documents are evidence. You can consider circumstantial evidence like someone walking in with a dripping umbrella. You can surmise it as raining outside. even if you don't see it. The judge says that a witness uses a pseudonym doesn't mean that their testimony is worthy of less weight. During the trial, do not read or view or listen to anything about this case. Don't post anything. Once the U.S. rests, the defense can present. Should he choose to. And then Asa Johnson, the prosecutor says, this is Sean Combs. To the public, he was a cultural icon. So mind you, these are opening statements right here, okay? So says, this is Sean Combs. To the public, he was a cultural icon, a businessman, larger than life. But there was another side to him. You will hear about 20 years of the defendant's crimes. He had a team to help him with kidnapping, arson, drugs, sex crimes. Let's start with one Mike. He was on the hunt for his girlfriend, Cassie. He forced her to have sex with male escorts while he watched and recorded it. He found out Cassie was seeing another man. Furious, he set out to find Cassie and another man. He woke an employee to drive to that house, but no one was there. The defendant didn't give up. He kept looking for Cassie. When he found her, he beat her brutally, kicking her in the back and flinging her around like a rag doll. But it wasn't enough. He told Cassie he could release a video of her having sex with male escorts. He broke into a man's house and beat and blackmailed his girlfriend. These are not only crimes. Cassie is not the only woman he beat and sexually exploited. 20 years of crime. He had a business, Bad Boy Records, that made him right. He relied on his bodyguards, chiefs of staff, who ran all aspects of his life. The group promoted his power. His bodyguard kidnapped an employee and set a car on fire, dangled a person. They delivered drugs whenever he said, including to women he forced to have sex with escorts. He transported them across state lines and even out of the country. Let me be very clear. This case is not about a celebrity's private sexual preferences. This was criminal. He coerced and even used violence. Along with his trial, we'll focus on two women. Along of this trial, we'll focus on two women, Cassie and Jane. We will show that the defendant used lies, drug, threats, and violence to force them to have sex in front of male escorts. He called them freak-offs, wild king nights, or hotel nights. His staff organized flights, cars, and hotels. At his direction, his staff set up rooms with lubricant and lighting. Staff came in with cash to pay these escorts and drugs. He made them take MDMA or Molly and ecstasy. It made them sick but also sexually aroused. He directed every step. He expected the women to appear to be enjoying themselves. He masturbated and recorded the events. Cassie was 19 with a hit song. Cassie tried to work her way into her music, but the defendant made her turn down many opportunities. She recorded, but he had the final say over the music she released. There was never another album. He'd sit Cassie in the head. He hit Cassie in the head and dragged her by her hair. He stumped Cassie in the face in an SUV, then made her stay in a hotel for a week to hide her injuries. He set up freak-offs, and often as once a week, she spent half of her time. Wait a minute. He set up freak-offs as often as once a week. So he set up freak-offs as often as once a week. She spent half of her time. The defendant made an escort urinate in her mouth. As you will see in this trial, he beat her in the hallway of a hotel to drag her back into the freak-off. Initially, she wanted to make him happy, but then she didn't want to. But the defendant made her. The consequences were severe. He beat her when he thought she took too long in the bathroom. Defying him would end in violence. She fled, but he found her. With the help of his inner circle, Cassie's career was in his hands. He put her hands. It was in his hands. He told her he could easily destroy her career by releasing a video. When he said to have a freak off, she knew she had no choice. She called the escort to put on the performances he wanted. Her safety depended on keeping him happy. The relationship was complicated. Both were unfaithful, but only one of them had power. He made Cassie do his bidding. He made Cassie do his bidding in those dark hotel rooms. Cassie was not the only one. This was a pattern. Let me tell you about Jane. She was a single mom that started spending time with him in 2020. She fell in love with him. He was seeing other women. One he told Jane about. One night he told Jane about the freak offs and made it happen immediately. He took her to a hotel where an escort was on the way. He directed her step by step. Jane thought it was a one-time wild night. She was wrong. He continued offering a real relationship. Jane wanted the escort to wear condoms, but the defendant did not let them. Jane tried to make it through those nights without using drugs. The first time she broke down and took ecstasy to finish. Another time she vomited, but he said, "Go do it again." Jane found two men and invited them to join the freak-offs so she could choose the man she'd be intimate with. The defendant discouraged her from working. He had the power to coerce her back into the hotel rooms. He threatened her with videos. Not even a year ago, he went to her house. She was angry. She hit him. He became enraged. She tried to hide. She locked herself in her bedroom. He kicked it open. Then the bathroom, the closet, the guest bedroom. He kicked her to the ground. He did not let Jane be. He said, "You're not going to F up my night." He said, "Call up an escort and perform." Jane followed his instructions. His violence got him what he wanted. Cassie would tell you about the time that the defendant forced himself on her. Mia, an employee, will tell you how the defendant forced himself on her, hand up her dress, penetrating her. Amidst all this violence, he and his inner circle worked to cover up his crimes. The video at the LA hotel, you will just hear how far this went. The defendant offered a hotel security guard a wad of cash, a brown paper bag with $100,000 in $100 bills. The inner circle kept Cassie in hiding for days. For all of this, he is charged with multiple federal crimes, racketeering, and conspiracy. Cassie and Jane will tell you of the most painful experiences of their life. You'll hear from some of the defendant's employees, including his personal assistant, Mia, who he sexually assaulted. She is grappling with it. Okay? So it goes on to say, you will hear from the employee he forced into the SUV with a gun, and from a chef. They worked punishing hours, at times without sleep. They bought drugs for him. They were expected to keep quiet. Some of these witnesses have already received settlements. You will also hear from some of the escorts that the defendant directed them and filmed it. An escort saw the defendant assault Cassie and drag her by her face during a freak-off. You'll see records from hotels and the damage and the car service. You will see text messages in which the defendant tells staff to bring cash for escorts, and by Jane saying she did not want to do freak-offs. You'll see videos in them. You'll see videos. In them, you can hear the defendant provide direction to Cassie and Jane high on ecstasy. You will see a video of the defendant brutally beating Cassie during a freak-off in an LA hotel. You will see photos of the damage, including to 4 doors in Jane's home not even a year ago. You will see what he had in his home: guns, med bags of drugs, and lube. You will see the agreement with the hotel guard barring him from speaking after he paid $100,000 for the video. You will hear him manipulate Jane into saying she wanted it. His threats not to pay for her home, texts to his staff about it. I ask you to do 3 things. Pay attention to the evidence, follow the judge's instructions on the law, and use your common sense, and you will reach the verdict that Sean Diddy Combs is guilty. The judge goes on to say, now, first of all, let me just say this. That was a great opening statement for the prosecution. It outlined, it told a story, and it outlined the bullet points of what they're going to see as far as evidence. And that is normal for a prosecutor to do. My only issue in there was that, and you guys, we're going to go over this later on when the escort was on the stand. He actually said that Cassie asked him as an escort to urinate on her, whereas the prosecution is saying that Diddy directed him urinating on her, and that could be seen 2 different ways. It could be seen like Cassie was afraid that if she didn't get urinated on, that Diddy would be mad, and so she had to do it, or it could be seen like she just wanted him to do it because she was a freak at a freak off. Okay. All right, so then Tenny Garagos says this case is about love and jealousy and money. They are trying to turn it into a racketeering case. It will not work. You are the jury. You will evaluate the witnesses, and finally, the story can come out. This case isn't about what you heard on the news. Sean Combs is fascinating. He grew up in Harlem and built lawful businesses. He worked for it. He created a culture and produced music that changed a generation. Witnesses will share with you that he's a fascinating person and people are drawn to him. If you wanted to climb in music, apparel, or beverages, you wanted to be around Sean Combs. He gave people opportunities to work at his companies. He had a vision that a few had. The witnesses mostly loved him. The text messages will show that. He is 55 years old. He's going to be Sean Combs. I am Tenny Geragos. I am honored to represent him. The only people in this courtroom who will tell you about racketeering are the prosecutors. There was no conspiracy. This case is about Sean Combs' private sex life. The government has no business in that. These hardworking individuals were educated from Harvard to Howard University. He has a temper and got violent. He is not proud of that. We own it. He sometimes gets so jealous or angry he's out of control. You will hear that he lied to his girlfriends. You may think he's a jerk or mean, but he's not tried for that. He's tried for running a racketeering enterprise. He's tried for running a racketeering enterprise. This is domestic violence. Domestic violence is not sex trafficking. He had been charged with domestic violence. Had he been charged with domestic violence, we would not be sitting through an 8-week trial. He is not guilty of these crimes. As the trial goes on, we are going to take accountability. We will not shy away. Tenny Geragos, not Asa. Sean Combs had a bit of a different sex lifestyle. The alleged victims were all getting something from him. They are adults. They too must take on responsibility for their lives as he does his. A free choice has pros and cons. You will evaluate these women. They make free choices every day for years. Ask yourself, what are all the ways this individual had the ability to make these choices? Ask, what is this person getting? Something they want. It may differ. Jealousy drove choices of the victims. Combs never married, but he is a many-woman man. He is always in multiple relationships. He was not always honest. It drove a primal jealousy. Sean Combs is extremely jealous. You might think it's hypocritical. They remained in a multi-year relationship with him. These women were in love with him. Infidelity and jealousy drove the violence. Alcohol and drugs drove things, but he is not racketeering. This case is about his relationships with Cassie and Jane. You will hear about swinger parties. They will testify about things that should never be heard in a federal courtroom that he liked to watch. You may not like that, but you are not here to judge him for his sexual preferences. A wealthy rapper paid for these women's homes and vacations. He is not charged with being a flawed individual. These women fought to be in a relationship with him. Cassie, I expect you will hear from her this week about her 11-year relationship with Combs. Combs with Kim Porter, the mother of his children. He continued with her until her death from pneumonia in 2018. His fights with Cassie were about cheating. It was a toxic relationship. They loved each other. Cassie will tell you about the jealousy of Kim Porter, then Gina. The day of the hotel hallway, jealousy was on display. Violence by the elevator bank 10 years ago. You'll see it later today. What Combs did is indefensible. The video is not evidence of sex trafficking. Cassie walked out of the hotel with 2 bags. Combs comes down wearing a towel. He stumps her and drags her by her hoodie. He comes around to get a phone. What causes a fight about a phone? Phones keep secrets of infidelity. As soon as he gets the phone, he sits down. He's visibly disgusted. Cassie calls security. You will hear from him later today. The guard tells him to leave the public area. You'll see Cassie telling him to get back to the hotel room. They stayed together 2 more years after this incident. Even in 2018, they are fighting to stay together. She saw a photo of Combs with Gina. He started with her in 2014. Cassie had a choice every single day every single day to stay with him. That was her better choice until she broke up with him. She was not coerced. When she left, there were no repercussions. She ran into the arms of a physical trainer Combs had hired to train her. The only freak offs you will see at this trial were on her phone, not his. In November 2018, Kim Porter passes away from pneumonia. Cassie did everything to be there for him. She flew to Georgia. Amidst the breakup, she flew to be with him. Combs said, Kim was my soulmate. The end of the relationship between Combs and Cassie was triggered by that. Cassie realized all the things she would not be. She wanted to be Combs' wife, the love of his life. She spent 11 years trying to get that. Cassie married her trainer and is pregnant with her third child. Evaluate Combs' intent at that time for those 11 years. The messages will show she was willing to participate in their sex life. Cassie's testimony this week can't change that. In 2020 with Jane, Combs was more upfront. He told her he was dating other women. She was still jealous. Jane wanted it public. He proposed a consensual threesome. They went to a private hotel. I expect her to say she enjoyed it. Jane was desperate to be with him, to give him things others couldn't. She tried to make it more than sexual. I'm not sure how she'll put it, but it always came back to parties in the hotel room. This was their time together. Jane did it for the cuddle. She wanted to make him happy. She was unable to resist him emotionally. There was a phone call in November 2023. Even after it, she flew out to see him many more times. It was toxic, but she was willing. Being a willing participant in your sex life is not sex trafficking. If she'd walk away, she would have lost him. You will see her jealousy. She would see him on social media with another woman and she would send messages of regret. It's not coerced. She was driven to try to be in first place. This was the way to try to get there. That is not a crime. There was a night a year ago when Jane hit Combs. It was born out of jealousy. He hit her back. She was overcome by jealousy. She slammed his head. She slammed his head onto her kitchen counter. Months later, she flew to see him and invited him. Months later, she flew to see him and invited an escort. She would call it one of her biggest nights, a wild king night, whatever you want to call it. This will be hard to watch. They're, in one word, intimate. The government told you about someone named Mia. Why are they making these allegations now? You will conclude that everyone have a motive. With Mia, she never said it before, nor when she first started cooperating with the government. If this was so hostile, why did they not call the police? They are vindictive. Their motive is simply money. Cassie filed a public lawsuit in November 2023. She was living in her parents' modest home in Connecticut. She went to a civil lawyer. The civil lawyer is here today. They went to civil lawyers to make a money grab. Cassie's demanded $30 million. Another asked for $22 million. How many millions of reasons do these witnesses have to lie? The evidence will not make out the charges. On bribery, this is about the Intercontinental Hotel. He paid a security guard to take the footage, to make the footage go away. This was solely to prevent bad publicity for Combs and Cassie. There was no law enforcement investigation. The kidnapping related to an employee. She worked for him for 10 years. She asked to work for him again. Drug trafficking, it was personal use. Drug trafficking, it was personal use. They worked hard. They were there to do something great and novel. It was a free choice. This was no conspiracy. He was paying different men for their time and experience. Porn actors get paid. Hulkamania, cowboys for angels. You can pay money for time and experience. That is what Sean Combs was doing. You are not here to impose your morality on this man. If you listen, you will find him not guilty of these crimes. Thank you. Okay, then the judge said they will break for lunch. And again, here is the courtroom. Oh, goodness. Okay. Now, I did like the defense's statement as well. I thought that he did a good job trying to defend his client. Here is the thing that I think is going to cast some reasonable doubt is that you know, when the opening statement from the defense attorney says these things were domestic violence is not sex trafficking, or he says a statement where he goes, I'm trying to remember his exact words, but he's like, they had free choice to leave. They had free choice to leave, and they didn't leave. And that really truly makes me think like, wow, you know what? Because she did walk away. And when she finally walked away, he did not come after her. She did see that he was in other relationships, right? So then you have, anyway, what I'm saying is the defense attorney did his job. He casted the doubt that needed to be casted. And all you need is a reasonable doubt. That's all you need, right? So it makes so much sense when he puts it like that. Hold on. Let me send this message because I'm live and sometimes these things happen. Let me let them know. I am live. I'm live. Okay. All right. So let's go on. So then the jury comes out. Brian Steele says, the jury is gone now, okay? Brian Steele then says, we're going to be objecting to 2 exhibits. The judge says, in the future, I'd like to hear this the day before. The prosecutor says, we only learned they objected. This is about an incident report about the hotel hallway broken vase. The report has an addendum. So then he says, in the 3rd paragraph, he writes that he did not want Mr. Combs to see Cassie out in front. He talks about a co-worked a day that, or ADEY, that Mr. Combs is about to yell. This is speculation and it should not go in. The judge says, Ms. Slavic, please pass up the exhibits. Adjourned with 2 extras. Oh, wait, yeah, okay. Okay. So then the jury starts to come back. The judge, in the term of the objection, the defense says we're still waiting for the defendant. The judge says, oh, sorry. And then here comes Sean Diddy Combs, because he probably went to the back to the jail to eat a peanut butter sandwich with some milk or something of that nature. So the judge said, oh, sorry. And then Sean Diddy Combs is brought back in. Now, are you guys imagining this while I'm reading it? Because I want you to imagine what is going on in the courthouse as I am reading step by step from the Inner City Press. Okay. So 1 exhibit is objected to, subject to U.S. laying the proper foundation. It is admissible. So she allowed it. The judge says the exhibit with the added note, the objection is well taken. It is excluded. Let's get the jury back in. So she admitted 1 exhibit, excluded the one with the add-on with the speculation from the employee. Judge said, all rise. Is the government ready to call the first witness? ASA, we enter 4 exhibits. And then Sean's attorney says no objection. Also says we call LAPD officer Israel Flores. And then he's sworn in. Flores says, I'm also a reservist for the Army. I was a guard with Securitas in 2016 in the Intercontinental Hotel near Century City. Also says, the prosecutor says, what happened on March 5th, 2016? Flores said, I was told of the 6th floor. There I recognized Sean Combs. He's there wearing a gray sweater. The prosecution says, what is your title? Flores says, Assistant Director of Security. Also says, let me show you a photo of the Intercontinental Hotel. Flores says, it's shaped like a pyramid. Judge says, admitted. Also says, what kind of incidents do you respond to? Flores says, I respond to all kinds of incidents. We had a couple of suicides there. We prepare incident reports, the 5 W's. I shouldn't have said that S word. Somebody tell me where my timestamp is at. 3:34? Okay. We prepare incident reports, the 5 W's. Also says, would you attach a photo to reports? Flores says, yes, but not video. We did not have the password. The prosecutor says, when did this incident take place? Flores says at 11 a.m. I got a report of a woman in distress on the 6th floor. I closed the security base and checked the cameras. There was an African American man pacing back and forth. I didn't see a female. I rushed there. What did you see on the 6th floor? Mr. Combs in a towel and some like colored socks. He's a rapper and producer, and Cassie was on the floor. Also said, let me show you photos. Combs in a tuxedo and in a separate photo, Cassie Ventura smiling. Also, the prosecutor said, what did you tell them? The officer said, this, that they, the officer said that is, oh God, this writing is horrible. Okay, the officer says, that is they were arguing, they have to take it back to the room. That if they were arguing, they need to take it back to the room. And that the broken vase would be charged to the room. Cassie said she wanted her bag and her phone. And then Miss Cassie said she wanted to leave. Mr. Combs said, you're not leaving. I saw inside the room a black male wearing dark clothing. Asa said, what did Mr. Combs do after Cassie left? Flores said he called for me. He was holding a stack of money not to tell anyone. What did you say? I said, I don't want your money. The damage is going to be charged to your room. Where did Cassie go? After I spoke with her, she left. A car pulled up. She left in a black SUV. Was there a driver? 7 feet, he says. He said, she wants to leave. I said, I'm talking to her, not you. They left. Asa said, then what? And then Flores said, we went up to Mr. Combs' room to remind him of the hotel rooms. He opened the door and grabbed the phone and says, are you recording me? I pinned him to the wall. So this is after this video of Cassie and Diddy that we see. As you guys can hear, it didn't end there. There was a lot. So then all of a sudden, Diddy gets pinned to a wall after Cassie ends up leaving in a black SUV. Flores said, I took pictures of the broken vase to tell them to come clean it up. I went to write the incident report. Also says, is this it? Flores says, my report with my name on it. Defense says, same objection. The judge said, noted, because that's the one that has the addendum in it, the speculation in it. Also said, did you review the video? Flores said, yes. Also said, I'm handing you a thumb drive with videos. The video was shown of him kicking Cassie up and down the hallway. By the way, one of the security guards at the hotel room admitted to dubbing this video so that he can show it to his wife at home. Very unprofessional, and I hope he gets fired. Okay, also said, did it have audio? And Flores said no. Also said, let's walk through it. Who is this? He said, Cassie, and this is Mr. Combs. What's happening here? She picked up the wall phone. What did you find when you got there? The broken vase. What's at the end of the video? Me coming out of the elevator. We didn't get to see none of that. Let's pull up the incident report again. Flores. Here, we're reminding him that checkout time was approaching. What did you add to the incident report after you reviewed the video? I described what I saw in the video. What else did you do to the video? I recorded 2 videos of it with my iPhone to show my wife at home. Very unprofessional, if I might add. I mean, just horrible. All right. Flores's video of the video with his voice over, including about how shiny his shoes were, is played for the jury. Asa, did you work the next day? Flores, no, I had the next 2 days off. When did you come back in? Did you look for the video? I did, but it was gone. Did you ever see it again? Yes, recently. Nothing further. Then the judge says cross-examination. Then Brian Steele, who's also one of Diddy's attorneys, says, you said your report was the 5 W's, right? Yes, Flores says. You mentioned that when you got off the elevator at 11:14 or 11:15, you described Mr. Combs as having a devilish expression on his face. That's my opinion, Flores says. When you get off the elevator, what's in your hand? My radio. Combs did not attack you, did he? No. And was there any law enforcement involvement? No. You videoed for your wife and kept it, right? I did. But never was law enforcement called. They were not. You told the jury Mr. Combs said to Cassie, you're not leaving. But in your report, but your report did not say that, right? At that point, I did not believe it was a significant fact. I'm not going to put down the back and forth. So it wasn't important 9 years ago, but only now. Objection, says the prosecution. The judge says overruled. Flores, the security guard, says, I did not put it in the report at the time. The attorney for Diddy says, you said you were offered a bribe, but hadn't you told him he had to pay you for the vase? Yes. Still, the attorney says, the gentleman you say you saw in the room, you described to the jury things not in your report. Flores says he didn't engage. Still says, why didn't you ask him his name? Flores says he wasn't talking to no one. Still says, did you tell anyone at the time? Flores says no. Still says, and the 7-foot driver, do you know who he was? Flores says, I don't know, but Cassie knew him. Still says, you didn't put in your report that you offered to call law enforcement, but she refused. Why not? Flores said, she said no. There was no reason to include it. Still says, you said you put Mr. Combs against the wall. That's aggressive, isn't it? Flores said, it could be, but I only put my forearm against his chest. Still says, but you didn't put that in your report. Flores says, you're asking me to have put more detail in my report. Still says, do you remember the layout? Flores says, no, it's just a corner room. Still says, was it a normal hotel room like I would stay in, just one room, or did it have a living room? He said, I don't know. The third party, you said he was on the bed. It was a pullout. Still says, you were in the hospitality business as well as security, right? Flores says, yes. Still says, Mr. Combs, it was clear to you that he wanted to pay for damage, right? Objection, the prosecutor calls for speculation. The judge says, ask in a different way. Still says, it can be embarrassing for a guest. Also says, objection. The judge says, sustained. Still says, one moment, nothing further. She gave up. He gave up because couldn't handle that heat from the prosecution. Okay? The prosecutor comes back up for redirect, says, do you typically include every single detail in a report? Flores said no. Also said, did he seem drunk or high? Flores said no. Also said, when he offered you money, what did he say? He said that he didn't want anyone to know about it, pretty much. Which way was Mr. Combs dragging Cassie? Back towards the room. Nothing further, the prosecution says. The judge says recross. Still comes up and says there are motion sensitive cameras, so there are gaps, right? Flores says yes. Still says nothing further. The judge calls the next witness. Asa, the prosecutor, says, what did Miss Ventura pay you for? The witness said to have sex with her, and Sean Combs was there too. Now, did y'all just hear this? Did y'all just hear that? This is where we start having a problem at, because this particular witness is saying that Cassie is the one who paid him, right? So this is where things start to get sticky. Now, she can say, hold on one second. Somebody's asking for the link to the video. Let me get them that. Guys, please press the like button. I'm doing a lot of reading. Please press the like button. Get in there. Get in there, guys, okay? And a shout out to my mods who are down in the comment section, lighting it up for me. I appreciate you very much. Okay. All right. There are motion sensitive cameras. What? Okay. Miss Ventura paid him to have sex with her, and Combs was there too. Okay. Here's the witness who's clearly not somebody that they want to put the name out. The witness says, my boss called me and said he couldn't find any of our black dancers. So could I go to a bachelorette party in the Gramercy Park Hotel in downtown Manhattan? The prosecutor said, what did you expect to do? The witness says, a little stripper dance. The male dancer says, she was in a hotel room in a red wig, stockings, and sunglasses. She gave me a few $100s. Also, Comey says, what was that room like? The male dancer says, red couches, Astroglide, a lubricant. There was a man on the right side of the room. The male dancer says the man had on a white robe and a bandana over his face, below his eyes, a baseball cap from his voice. I recognize him as Sean Combs. Also, Comey, the prosecutor, says, what did he say? That he was into importing and exporting. He said he was having problems with my boss. Defense, objection. Also, Comey, the prosecutor, says, I'll get back to that. After the sex was over, what happened? The male dancer said, Cassie gave me a couple of $1,000s of more. The male dancer said, he said to give them my phone number. I did. Cassie called me and asked me for a photo. Prosecutor said, then what? Witness said, she called me to go back. I did for a few hours and then a few times after that. Combs was always present? Yes. Any other locations? The male dancer said Essex House, his residence on 56th Street, I believe 210 at the time, and at her residence on West End Avenue, I think number 10. The prosecutor said, what name were you to say you were there to see? And the male dancer said, Black. I would send her vulgar messages. Now you guys got to remember, I'm struggling a little bit because the writing is just so all over the place. Okay, I would send her vulgar messages. Like what? You want me to say it? Give me an example. I text, I want to F you right now. How often did you see baby oil? Every time. The male dancer said, Sean Combs said, we didn't have enough baby oil on. He said, y'all slow down, separate from each other. One time he tried to have us role play like we just met in an airport. We weren't so good, so we skipped that. What direction did Mr. Combs give you? He told me to step off and back off. How many times, if any, were you told to urinate on Miss Ventura? The defense, Xavier Donaldson, another attorney, said, objection, subjective or suggestive. The judge said, overruled. The male dancer said they told me to do it all at once. Objection to him saying they. I've got it, the judge said. Also, Comey, the prosecutor, says, what happened afterward? They'd leave me waiting for hours. The whole thing might go on for 10 hours. They were headed to the Essex Hotel. They said to go in 30 minutes. It was the first time he opened the door as himself, dressed in a suit with no mask. Prosecutor said, how did things change? He said he didn't feel. Then the defense attorney said, objection. Asakami said, who, if anyone, recorded? The male dancer said, Mr. Combs with a cell phone and a camcorder. He took a photo of my driver's license for insurance. He said, the defense, objection. The judge says, focus it. Prosecutor says, what did you understand? The witness said that he was threatening me. Once I went and Cassie was slumped over, he said, it's not going to happen this time. Also, the prosecutor said, did Mr. Combs offer you drugs? The dancer said, Molly, I guess it's called. I don't do drugs. MDMA, MDA, I think. I went out and handed out $100 bills. Prosecutor says, how did the Molly make you feel? The male dancer said, sick and euphoric and like an idiot handing out $100 bills. Prosecutor said, who else was present? The dancer said, a guy who told me he was an actual escort. He was having sex with Cassie at her apartment. The guy was like looking at Sean Combs, and Combs said, don't you be effing looking at me. Combs Donaldson, which is the defense attorney, said, objection. The judge said, let's get a fresh question. Prosecutor said, what did he look like? The male dancer said, black guy, kind of skinny. We exchanged phone numbers. Prosecutor said, have you seen him in 10 years? The male dancer said, no. Prosecutor said, did it ever seem like you were not the first person there? The witness said, yes. Half-used Astroglide, towels on the floor. Also said, after the $100 bills, did you see them again? The male dancer said, I couldn't do it anymore. Child, not I couldn't do it anymore. Now, y'all know it's getting real bad and real juicy when the male escort, the person that is stripping and escorting, is telling Sean Puffy Diddy Daddy Combs, brother love Diddy Daddy Puffy Combs, that he can't do it anymore. I'm just saying, okay? That's crazy. That is literally his job. Okay, Also, Comey, the prosecutor said, what did you get paid when you couldn't perform? The male dancer said, nothing, but I never asked for money. I was happy to get involved with people with such notoriety. But after I saw Sean Combs hit Cassie, I couldn't do it anymore. Prosecutor said, what was Mr. Combs saying as he meet Cassie? The male dancer said, he'd say, bitch, when I tell you to come over, you come over. I didn't know what to do. Prosecutor said, did you intervene? Male dancer said, no. I knew that I knew that there were chances that there were bodyguards. Objection. Of course, that was from the defense. The judge says sustained. Also, Comey, prosecutor, says, what's next? The male dancer said, he said, are y'all ready to continue? Did you try to continue? The male dancer said, I don't recall. Did you see them again? Male dancer said, I thought I had developed some sort of friendship with Cassie. I may have been speculating. I went there. I heard him slapping her. He walked out with a towel. She ran to me and I asked, why are you staying with this guy? The defense attorney says objection. The judge says on what grounds? The defense says on hearsay. The judge says overruled. She said it was okay. The prosecution says nothing further. The judge takes a break before cross-examination. And again, here we have this video or this picture of the two, I'm sorry, not the two, of the courthouse with several people guarding it. Okay. All right. During the break, the male dancer witness's name is Daniel Phillip, not Phillips, as it first sounded like. The judge welcomed back a juror, but can I have the lawyers for sidebar? So they went ahead and went into sidebar. The judge to Mr. Phillip, you are still under oath. Combs Xavier Donaldson, let me show you a text message chain between you and Cassie. Is this accurate? The Daniel Phillips said yes. Donaldson says you were working for a service. A male revenue show, says the male dancer Daniel Phillip. The attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs, Donaldson, because I want you guys to see what you're looking at. Donaldson is the attorney for Sean Diddy Combs. Daniel Phillips is the male dancer, okay? You were a manager, male strippers for women. Yes. Prostitution was prohibited. That is correct. Your job was to build it up. Yes and no. I'll go with yes. Objection. Sustained, the judge says. How you going to just be a lawyer, an attorney, and just say, I'll just go with yes? No, I said yes and no. What the heck? Of course, the prosecution said objection. The judge sustained it. Back to the attorney. Did the company open fake businesses to optimize search results? Fake addresses. It was just SEO. Donaldson, when you went to optimize the lady's experience. The male stripper says, I have no idea what you mean. It's just our slogan. Combs' attorney says, Cassie told you to say the name Black. He says, yes. Your boss told you someone wanted a black man stripper. Philip says, yes. Let me show you. And then the prosecutor says this shouldn't be put up on screen. Donaldson, the attorney, then says, take it off, take it off. So it sounds like already to me like Diddy's team is a bit of a mess. They're putting stuff up on screen that doesn't belong on screen. They're claiming that the prosecution is trying to kick 7 black jurors of 9 jurors off for reasons of discrimination. They are objecting on grounds that shouldn't be objected on. He is claiming that he is going to make his choice of answers that he wants to take from the witnesses, and getting overruled on that. I mean, they kind of sound a bit of a mess so far. Combs is Donaldson, his attorney. She is wearing a wig. Yes. She handed you money. She handed me $4,000. Before any oil rubbing? Correct. She had on heels and dark sunglasses, Philip says. Where'd the money come from? Her hand. I know that's right. Let's get specific. Combs is Donaldson. You were wearing a New York City Police Department uniform, right? I bought an NYPD t-shirt. You took the oil off in front of Cassie. The oil? No, I took my clothes off. She said it's my birthday. It appears she's enjoying herself. Philip said, yes. What was your position? Missionary. I was like, did that just happen? Donaldson says, She asked you for a photo. I do not know if Sean Combs asked for it. The judge said, ignore that. Talking to the jury, of course. Then the judge said, we'll pick up tomorrow. And that was the end of that particular court day. The judge is gone. The judge here says, Mr. Phillip, there's no conversations with the government. ASA agents are providing him with protection and support if that's okay. And that is the prosecution saying that their agents are providing this witness with protection and transport if that's okay. And then he asked for a sidebar. The judge said no, talk with your lawyer. And again, that picture. Wow, it went down on that first day. That was a lot. Like it literally went all the way down. And guess what? We can't be mad at that because that was very descriptive and I liked it. I think he did a great job with covering how the first day went. I felt like I was almost inside of the courtroom. So as you guys know, in a federal court, there are no cameras in there. There's no media allowed in there. And so, yeah, unfortunately, we won't get the chance to really see stuff except be able to hear it through these particular people that are allowed in the courtroom. Okay, so this is just the opening statements that I'm going back through. Let's see. I'm trying to see what else I can find from today because y'all know it's going down again today. That was interesting. It was still not. Okay, that was yesterday, so it's still a day ago. And the opening statements finished around 12:20, and then they went into that. I do want to know what he said, but if you guys want to know what the inner city vlog guy Matthew Russell is saying, go ahead and go to his page. I'm not going to play his content, his video content on my channel, but he's doing a great job as far as allowing us to understand what it is that he is looking at and saying in this courtroom, what they're saying in the courtroom. Let me see if I can find anything else. How long we been live? 57 minutes? Okay. 57 minutes. Thank you to all 12 of you guys that are tuned in right now. I really appreciate it. You guys know that on internet they have some vertical live competitions that they're doing with TikTok and otherwise. And so unless I'm vertical, they won't really push my videos out. And I just don't see a reason for me to continue to just always do vertical because they're gonna, market my video more. So, but I appreciate you guys for being here with me. This is his Patreon. Let's see. Okay. This document, Diddy docket delay. The prosecutors filed this under seal 4 weeks ago and only tonight at midnight put it on the public docket. Let me see. Honorable Judge A. Okay, let's read this. Let us read this. Honorable Judge Arun Subramanian. Okay. Dear Judge Subramanian, the government is in receipt of the defendant's April 15, 2025 request for a Rule 17 subpoena for materials from victim 4 and respectfully request to respond by Friday, April 18, 2025. In making this request, the government notes that the proposed subpoena is inconsistent with the guidance provided by the court at the April 14, 2025 conference in this matter. At that conference, the court advised defense counsel that a broad request for materials from victim 4 would present issues and that counsel should therefore be rifle shot about what you are asking and are not, or what you are asking for, and point to specific items of relevance that you believe exist and have not been turned over and are not in Mr. Combs' possession and conferred with the government. So this paperwork is from when he decided that he was going to ask for all from the evidence, and he wanted the identity of some people. And he was trying to get ahead of this trial in a big way. But guess what? That they didn't let that happen. But that was the paperwork from that. The government writes in response to court's April 22nd, 2025 court order seeking additional information regarding the risk of harm to victim 4, where she to testify under her own name. So we, let me see. So I think victim 4 might be Cassie. I know they're saying it was victim 1, but she's saying that she wants to, wait, numerous insufficient warning. Victim 4 wishes to testify under her pseudonym. Okay, so that is definitely not Cassie. Okay. Victim 4 wishes to. I'm going to pull all of this paperwork out. We'll do a paperwork run. I want to know what he's saying right there, but I'm not going to play it. Okay. 4 hours ago. 4 hours ago. Let's get to it. We took a real break, didn't we? All right, 4 hours ago. All rise. Judge Summarian says, let's try to get through these issues efficiently as we have the jurors waiting. We have a letter from a juror that we will make court exhibit 1. On the videos, when will they be offered into evidence? The prosecutor says this afternoon. The judge says this is about evidence that is coming into the case. The public has a right to know what is happening at trial. I don't see how we would navigate that concern. There is a potential impact on the juror of signaling. Some evidence requires sealing. Did I say that right? Sometimes he doesn't write right. Did I say that right? There's a potential impact on the jurors of signaling some evidence. Signaling some evidence requires sealing. Okay. The prosecutor says, we just wouldn't show the videos to the courtroom gallery, and the jurors and everyone in the well would wear headphones. Those materials are sexually explicit or involve nudity. One has submitted a letter here. And y'all see what this says. It is a freak off video. Perhaps this is a video of them actually getting down with the get down. We don't know. All right. So Sean Diddy Combs' attorney says this is adult porn. That is what this is. So it's narrowly tailored. Our application is only that the visual images and the audio is within the ambit of the sealing order. We could ask questions tastefully. What would the NYT or WSJ do with this? Note they are not the only press. Sometimes things get unsealed and published. So Sean Combs' lawyer is essentially asking, what would the press do with this information? Like, this is not good. If we do show this and, you have people like the inner city press in the courtroom, what could possibly happen, right? On the 2 incidents, this is the judge talking, on the 2 incidents with Miss Ventura, when we discussed this last week, defense says the assault in Connecticut, messages between Ventura and Mr. Combs, it's relevant. The judge said, let's see if there's any issue. The prosecution said it should be excluded. Then one of Diddy's attorneys says he suspected she was cheating on him. She did not answer her phone. She got into a bar fight and tried to kill someone. So it's relevant to his suspicions and her substance abuse outside of their sexual relationship. Tenny Garrigo says she was taking drugs while close with her family in another state. The judge said, I overruled the government's objection. This can be asked about. Now, prior consistent statements. We're talking about a sequencing issue. Are they on direct or on rebuttal? Now, did you guys just hear that? They're basically saying Cassie was not only getting high with Diddy, but she was getting high when she was with her own family. She was going out in public, starting bar fights, and damn near killed somebody. But, of course, the prosecution can argue that she had a substance abuse problem because Diddy is the one who started her substance abuse problem. And what you're seeing is the consequence or the result of that, and not necessarily her just being out doing stuff on her own, but the result of him making her, become a crackhead. Okay? Prosecution says in their opening, they said Miss Ventura made her own choices. They asked who really had control in this relationship, clearly begging the answer that it was Miss Ventura. Exhibit B315, the threat to release the sex tape. They said only she had it. Combs, Alexandria Shapiro, his attorney, one of his, says, we submit that these are hearsay until redirect. The judge said if they come in, they're in. You don't object. Shapiro said, we do. What we said in the opening was that Mr. Combs, the judge interrupted her, said, you seem to say she was lying about threats to release a video. Combs' attorney said, the predicate for prior consistent statements hasn't been met. The judge said, I find that it has for this exhibit. The defense opening said there were millions of reasons for people to testify here. That's the attack that was used. As to B316 too. But the standard has not yet been reached as to B332 and B339, okay? Get Mr. Phillip in the witness box and then bring in the jury. All rise. These are whole conversations that these people are having before the court even starts, okay? Xavier Donaldson, P. Diddy's, one of his attorneys, says, so to continue, you return to the Gramercy Hotel. The male dancer says yes. Donaldson says, while you and Miss Combs, while you and Cassie Ventura were having sex for hours, Miss Ventura took the lead. Philip said no. Donaldson says, you took the lead? Philip said, we were equally doing our thing. There wasn't a leader. Donaldson said, you decided together? Philip said yes. Fair to say she was in complete control of everything she was doing. The male dancer says, I can't say that. Donaldson says, you did not wear a condom? He said, I did not. Donaldson says, your boss told you Cassie Ventura paid for the hotel. Philip said, yes. Combs' attorney Donaldson said, she paid with her credit card. The male dancer said, I have nothing to do with that. She used her card to pay for the dancer. Donaldson said, okay, that assault at her apartment on 11th Avenue, he said, I believe it was West End Avenue. Donaldson said, you claim Mr. Combs told her to come over. She said she had her personal information on the computer, so wait a minute. And he threw a bottle at her. Philip said, correct. Donaldson said, he comes out and says, are you ready? Philip said, he said, are you guys ready? Donaldson says, isn't it true that Mr. Combs told you, yo, man, I'm going to have to deal with this. You need to get the F out of here. The male dancer said that is not correct. Donaldson said, in 2023, didn't you tell prosecutors? He said, yo, man, the prosecutors then objected and said that that is not in evidence. The judge said, sustained, you can only use it to try to refresh his recollection. Then Combs' attorney Donaldson said, read it to yourself. Does it refresh you? The dancer says, I do not remember saying that. What I'm reading here, get the F out. Also says, objection. The judge says, disregard that. Diddy's attorney Donaldson says, did you date a model named Malia? The male dancer says, Malia, and I didn't say I dated her. We were friends. Donaldson says you were with her and saw Cassie with someone not Mr. Combs. Philip said, yes. You told Malaya that you saw Cassie socially. The male dancer said, yes. Then Combs' attorney Donaldson said, you thought Cassie wanted to see you one-on-one. Nothing to do with Sean Combs, right? Philip said, I don't know what you mean. Donaldson said, in front of the Dream Hotel, that's what you thought. He said, no. Combs' attorney said, you only saw her inebriated one time. Philip said, I saw her passed out on the couch. Mr. Combs told me, I don't think it's going to happen today. Donaldson said, the time with the other male, you rotated. Philip said, not correct. He said, you watched? He said, yes. Donaldson said, you said Mr. Combs was directing, but do you recall meeting the prosecutors on March 28, 2025 and telling them you didn't recall Mr. Combs giving directions about positions? Philip said, yes. So he didn't direct. Incorrect. Donaldson said, you thought you were in a relationship with Cassie, didn't you? He said, no. Now, that's going to confuse the jury because it just confused me. That's the reasonable doubt stuff that I'm talking about. You said he did direct you, but then you said he didn't. I mean, come on. Which one? Did the man direct the sex capades Or did he not? Is the question, right? Okay. You wanted to get along with her to date her. If she'd let me, I would have. You get jealous of Mr. Combs. No. Did you not tell them that Mr. Combs would tell you it's my turn? Objection. Can we have a sidebar? They did a sidebar. Mr. Donaldson, Combs' attorney, said, didn't you tell the government that you would feel jealous because you like Miss Ventura romantically? Phillips said, I don't recall that. He said, put up 35 to 70. The prosecution said, just for the parties. Phillips said, I don't recall that. Donaldson said, nothing further. The judge said, redirect. Also said, please explain why you now say Mr. Combs directed you. Phillips said he asked about position, but Mr. Combs did tell us what to do. Use baby oil. Prosecutor said, the timing of the handing of the cash. How did the amount compare to your stripping services? Phillips said, 3,800 more. Prosecutor said, how much more were you paid to perform when you could? He said 7 to 5 or 6 thousandths of more. And when you couldn't perform, they paid me nothing then. Did Miss Ventura call you after the Dream Hotel? Yes. Do you know who she was with? No. Did she answer your text messages? Never, almost. You said you wanted to hug her. Why? I could see she was afraid. What did you do? I could not engage. I was messed up. What did Mr. Combs say to you? He said it's time for you to go. In the Gramercy Hotel, who was in that hotel? Sean Combs, myself, and Cassie. When she appeared to enjoy herself, was Sean Combs always in the room? Yes. Was that the same man who called her a bitch and beat her? I did not see a beating, I presume. Objection, says Sean's attorney. Sustained. You heard slapping. Yes, nothing further. Recross, briefly. Okay, Diddy's attorney said, the document, do you see where you said I'm on the Upper West Side? She says, 10 West End Ave, hit me when you're there. Phillips said, yes. Do you see your text? I don't give a fuck if I'm a little tipsy. I love y'all, N-word. Phillips said, yes. Okay, Sean's attorney said, and that was after the beating? He said, yes, nothing further. Redirect, redirect. The prosecution said, why did you write that? He said, I wanted them to see I had no problem with what he had done. Keep it going. Like, it'll keep it going. No further questions. Sidebar before the next witness. The judge said yes. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. That got really, really wild. That got really, really, really wild. I did not know, okay, that all of that was going on with Miss Cassie. I mean, wow, I had no clue that she was into all that. That's a little bit wild. I want to see if she's posting anything on social media. I know that she's not supposed to be, but damn, like, when I tell you that got crazy. Let's see these comments. Cassie Ventura is currently on the stand testifying against Diddy. This is an hour ago. So yeah, I'm going to put this in a separate video. She's telling the jury that if she didn't smile the right way at Diddy, he would beat her. Oh my goodness, the details are going to get much uglier. I mean, she's so gorgeous to allow somebody to do so. I mean, to allow him to do her like that is insane. Sending Cassie out with my love and support on today. My girl is legit the strongest woman in the room. May justice prevail. She is facts the strongest woman to go through all that stuff. Why don't they just hand a gun over to Cassie and tell her to pick where she wants to shoot? Okay, that person definitely doesn't like Diddy. Currently testifying. Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura took the stand today. Testified about the physical, mental, and sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of Puffy in their 10-year relationship. Absolutely crazy. Look how he's looking at her. Look how the bodyguard is looking at him like, don't do it. Don't you do it. Okay, but very gorgeous girl. Very sad what happened to her. We just got the chance to hear one witness up on the stand, which was their male stripper / escort, testifying about a little bit of his dealings with Cassie. Of course, we'll get further into this later on today. I'm going to take a little small break. Thank you guys for joining me for this video. I'll see you